It's October 22nd, 2019. The Board of Trustees is convening for the executive sessions. Has a roll call, please.
Mr. Inscombe?
Present.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Wegpark?
Sure. I'd like to request a motion that the board go into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, to discuss the employment and compensation of public employees, and also in accordance with Section 121.22G3, to discuss pending or imminent litigation with the township attorney.
Thank you, sir.
I would motion that we go into executive session for those reasons.
I second it. Any discussions?
Not from me.
Okay, none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
The Board of Trustees will be adjourned for the executive sessions. We should be back. Thank you. It's 7 o'clock. Oh, sorry. 7 o'clock, October 22nd, 2019. We're convening the Board of Trustees of Colerain Township. We are back from this executive sessions. Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Inscombe?
Present.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Present.
And Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Weckbach?
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Okay. Any discussions? Nothing. Okay. All right. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us remain standing. Let us keep in our thoughts about the safety of our children as they celebrate this Halloween. Also, let's keep in our thoughts about the building a strong neighborhood for our children. Have this place they can have a dream, aspiration come true, and we play the big part and role in their life. Thank you. Be seated, please.
Thank you all for being here.
The next on the agenda is the fiscal office.
Sure. First, I'd like to ask for the board's approval of the October 8th, 2019 meeting minutes.
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it.
Okay, any discussions?
There was one or two
Thank you, I fixed those.
capitalization and a typo.
Right, fix those.
So no discussions? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you.
Second, I'd like to ask the board to amend the agenda to please amend the minutes of the September 10th and September 24th meetings. I emailed you about this. Somehow on both of those minutes, the motion and second and vote for you to go into executive session was not included in the minutes. And that certainly needs to be included.
So that's two
That's the-
separate motions. I would motion that we amend the agenda to put another item on, which would be the re-approval of these amended minutes.
Right.
So is there a second?
I second it. Any discussions?
No.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
All right, so the only change is just to record the motion, second, and vote for the executive session. So for the September 10th, 2019 meeting minutes as amended.
I would motion that we approve the September 10th, 2019 minutes as amended.
I second it. Any discussions?
None from me.
Okay, Greg? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And then the same motion, please, for September 24th.
I would motion that we amend the September 24th minutes to incorporate the changes that Heather has made.
I second it. Any discussions?
None from me.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rojagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye. Is that,
Roll.
okay.
Thank you. The next on the agenda is presentation.
Yes, Board, we have 3 presentations tonight, and I was informed that actually the third presentation is going to be rescheduled due to a scheduling conflict. So if we could have Eric Anderson from KZF please come to the podium to present an update on the Colerain Avenue corridor study. You guys will remember that this was a project that we started last year, and we are getting near the finish line. So we've got some recommendations that Eric is going to run through, and then some feedback and different opportunities to provide that. So go ahead, Eric, it's all yours.
So thanks for having me here
Thanks for
today.
being here.
So I'm going to provide a quick update on the Colerain Avenue corridor study. My name's Eric Anderson. I'm a community planner with KZF Design, the firm that was selected to perform the corridor study. So in November 2018, the Colerain Township Trustees selected KZF as their partner for the analysis of Colerain Avenue within Colerain Township with the purpose of creating a consistent, appealing, and safe public environment along Colerain Avenue. At this point, we're about 95% complete with the project. We've completed a lot of milestones over the past year, which I'll walk through in a second. But my team's recommendations are complete, and we have moved into the public comment phase of the work. So we had a variety of public meetings where we got feedback. We've been revising our mapping as we've worked in June, July, August, and September, and we have developed a report that goes along with those maps to explain all of the work that went into them, explain our recommendations. And so that report was published today, and we are looking for feedback on the report itself through November 22nd, which I'll get into that in a little bit. After the 30-day public comment period, we'll revise our recommendations based on feedback, the township's feedback, and also comments from ODOT. We anticipate submitting a final report in early December, and the township trustees then have the option to adopt that either in December or whenever that's on the agenda. Regarding the work that's been completed so far, we've done a very in-depth review of existing conditions along the corridor that consisted of a kickoff meeting with township staff, a lot of research on behalf of KZF Design, review of past work and plans that have been completed in Colerain Township, as well as data collection and mapping. The design team then drove and walked the corridor dozens of times to confirm the mapping and also make observations on what we saw occurring along the corridor. We did a visioning session in February 2019 with the township staff where we discussed existing conditions, opportunities and challenges, and strategized improvement ideas. We also initiated conversations with ODOT, OKI, and Hamilton County in February and held a public open house in March to get feedback on what residents and businesses and the general public see as in the corridor, because they're the ones that drive it every day and live here, so they know best. ODOT was also in attendance for that first March public meeting. All of that work led to a series of analysis maps that combined all the feedback that we received January through March. Those maps were used for the basis of the recommendations that we developed. We also developed a series of goals for the project, prioritizing safety and beautification as kind of the top two ranking goals. After that, the KZF Design team strategized kind of big picture ideas for improvements along the corridor, and our architects designed what they thought the streetscape should look like. We then test fit all of our recommendations property by property digitally on the computer. to make sure everything worked in the real world and fit within the right-of-way, and just to make sure everything worked when it's on the scale. But we were always checking back with the purpose of creating a consistent, appealing, and safe public environment along the corridor. We used a variety of engagement methods, community engagement methods, both closed and open to the public. Highlights include website updates, social media posts, news articles. We had stakeholder meetings with ODOT and OKI. We did workshops with Colerain Township staff, and we had specific meetings to engage businesses along the corridor. For the most recent business engagement meeting we did a postcard mailing to all of the businesses and property owners and addresses along Colerain Avenue. So it was about 430 postcards were mailed.
Can I stop you and ask a question?
Yeah.
Real quick before you stop, is your mic on? I'm getting a complaint
know.
from home.
It's
Hey,
not.
Dana, is his mic on?
It's actually Chip.
Chip? Sorry, Chip, I didn't know you weren't Dana back there.
Okay.
Sounds good, okay. Somebody at home was having a hard time hearing him, and I just wanted to clarify that.
Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt.
You mentioned about you got a lot of stakeholders
Yeah.
you talked to. Okay, I know you met with OKI, you met with ODOT, and we got letters from the business community, and looked like you didn't talk directly with them, or are some kind of gathered up all the business leaders along the Colerain who are on the business. They're the important stakeholders. Did you directly met with them, talk to them?
So in late September, we held a public, I guess you could call it a public meeting. We had it at Clippard, and that was where we mailed the 430 postcards to all the businesses and property owners on Colerain Avenue, and we invited them to come to this, what we call the business engagement meeting. We had two meetings, one in the morning at 8:30 and one at 4:30 in the afternoon to kind of catch people before and after work. And we had about 20 people attend both the morning and the afternoon session. And we had some good discussion there. We did some group discussion, but then we also had the large printed maps available for everyone to look at and comment.
Thank you.
We mailed out about 430 postcards. The township created a page on the website that received almost 400 website visitors. We've done a couple press releases and had several news articles. Overall, we had kind of 6 engagement meetings with the public. And looking at sign-in sheets and kind of other comments that we received, we've had about 100 input participants at this point in the project. I did have some great visuals for the recommendations, but just to kind of talk about the framework of the plan real quick, the core concepts of the recommendations are based on landscape medians and median U-turns, streetscape and landscape improvements to the corridor, gateways and signage at strategic locations and strategic intersections, access management principles, so how people access Colerain Avenue from private property, and then some site-specific redevelopment strategies, so that things that the township can do as property redevelops. In addition to that, we made a lot of recommendations for beautification, landscaping, improved sidewalks, and medians were kind of the core basis of those beautification recommendations. And then, so the draft study and the reports are currently available on the township website for review. We have kind of an official public comment period that goes until November 22nd at 5 o'clock. We'll then incorporate feedback into the maps in the report and then publish a final document in December. I'm kind of looking forward. A big step, I guess not a big step, but a big update is that the township just a couple weeks ago received notification that they are receiving a $750,000 federal grant for sidewalks and streetscape improvements on Colerain Avenue. And that project will go from Shady Crest to John Rose approximately. In addition to that, we're also working right now on some landscape improvements at the I-275 gateway. In addition, Green Township has also kind of partnered with KZF Design to extend the study into kind of that Green Township neighborhood business district.
Excellent.
And we anticipate starting the Mount Airy neighborhood business district segment with City of Cincinnati in January. And really kind of the next big steps is to kind of start identifying some pilot projects for the recommendations and then move forward with those. It's really kind of where we stand right now. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have.
Well, it's exciting, Green Township stepping up doing their part, because I tell you, I get a lot of complaints over stuff that's not in Colerain because people don't realize where our boundaries are, which is why I'm excited. We'll have some defined boundaries so people know, or at least have a better idea of where they're at.
And that runs from Burnside south past where Perkins used to be, where Mount Airy IGA used to be, down to the city line. Just, well, I know that, but I'm just,
Burnside to
for people
Kipling.
that don't realize that. So-
Burnside to Kipling, essentially.
Yeah, Burnside to Kipling.
In fact, if you go back Burnside far enough and curve off to the right, those last few houses in that last street are actually in the city of Cincinnati, so all three of them kind of come together right there. So,
Yeah, we actually had the first stakeholder meeting for that portion of the project last Thursday.
Did you get anybody to show up from a couple of those businesses right there that are vacant? Do you have any updates on that we can press you for?
So I don't have any updates because we didn't really talk about, we were talking more about existing conditions for that, but we did have several business owners at that first stakeholder meeting.
Hopefully from buybacks and Frisch's, the old Frisch's and Waltz and
So
Perkins.
we had the
I'm really
garden
pressing for some
savings bank
information.
And, yeah, no, we had one commercial real estate agent and two business owners. One was Guardian Savings Bank and the other one was, I can't remember what, but
It's okay.
at this time. But
I'm glad that they're getting involved.
yeah, and then it's exciting also that we're doing the City of Cincinnati portion with Mount Airy also, so.
Excellent.
Great work. Thank you.
So just to emphasize here, and it's on me that the presentation wasn't working, what we're going to do is we're going to take that and we're going to put it on our webpage where we have all the other updates to the corridor plan. We've put out already a story through Circle and through our Facebook page, but if you're less tech savvy, you can reach out to the township directly, ask for Jeff Mills, or you can shoot Jeff Mills or Eric Anderson an email with feedback that you may have on the corridor plan. There's a lot of work that went into this. We're pretty excited to see it getting close to the finish line, and so, at this point, we're really going to rely on feedback from everybody that is an involved stakeholder. So we appreciate your time, Eric, and thank you.
Eric, for the public, what is your email address?
Oh, it's Eric, ERIC, .Anderson, ANDERSON, @KZF.com. And all the communications that are going out with, about the public feedback includes my email address as well as Jeff Mills.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. The next on the agenda, another presentation.
Yeah, so this is actually a really exciting presentation and one that I'm thrilled to be able to give you all. So as everybody in the audience today got to see on their way in, we have an update on Megaland. So as we all recall, back in July, the board entered into an agreement with, it is Human Nature, to provide some sort of direct design work for what the future of Megaland might be. So what they did after that is they met with a few members of township staff to kind of discuss direction, things like that. And then they went out and met with our summer camp kids. And they spent the whole day there getting feedback from the kids. Kids had a really fun activity where they got to put stickers with hearts and things like that on different elements that they wanted to see in a playground. And from that, they were able to develop a few themes. Those themes are what is out in our rotunda right now. But to kind of go through some of the other presentation pieces here, desired elements. I mean, the kids want everything, right? Of course, they wanted every single potential playground piece of equipment that we could have. Those concepts out there are not the details. That's the big picture, and that's what I want to keep emphasizing to everyone as they look at these and as they provide us feedback. So I've been getting a lot of feedback so far about specifics that people are looking for, whether that's, climbing walls or zip lines or swings or whatever that might be. All of those types of items are things that can be incorporated into these designs. These are not the specifics, and so that's what I keep trying to share with individuals as I speak with them. And through those different designs that we have out there, you actually can sometimes, with the subboards that are below them, see some of those features as they could be incorporated. So stay tuned, there will be more coming. On that note, another item that has come up a lot is this concept of younger kid play versus older kid play. The way that we are structuring the park, at least in concept, is to include both the existing Megaland site as well as that site that is just below it, just down the hill from it, where there's that little toddler park. So the hope is that over time, as funds allow, we would also then do some renovations at that toddler park that would also tie into the theme of the main Megaland, but be more geared to younger kids. So that you as a parent could be at one site, have your older kids on the big structure and your younger folks at the little structure, and they can all be playing together. And so that's one of the things that I think sometimes gets lost in translation when we're looking at 2D images. So I just wanted to share that with everybody as well. What you'll see throughout all three of these themes is a concept of heroes. So that's something that's near and dear to me. When I think of heroes, I'm thinking of our police officers, our firefighters, our public services individuals that are out there on a day-to-day basis doing things, risking their lives to help you all. And so that is something that did kind of come out through the conversations with the kids as well as in some of these design concepts. And rather than get into a lot of the details here, I hope everybody takes the time to either look at our social media or circle posts and provide feedback to the township, or to stop by out in the rotunda and provide some feedback as well. This is step one. After this, that feedback is all then going to be digested by our design consultants, and then they're going to start to formulate an exact plan for the future of what Megaland might look like. So I'm super excited. I don't know if the board has any initial feedback at this point. If so, we're happy to take it.
I'll say the guys in green are heroes too. Just snow removal is super dangerous and sometimes a thankless job, so I'd pass that along as well. I would be curious if there's any updates on funds, because if I recall correctly, phase one of this we have enough money for. Phase two, we are relying on another elected official to make that happen. Do we have anybody comment on that?
So you'll see later in your agenda packet today, that's a great teaser, for a grant proposal that we're going to be submitting to the state. The state has a capital grant process that they do every 2 years, and we're hoping to apply and then be awarded some state capital funds to help us to do phase two of this project.
And one of the neatest things in this process, aside, I got to see it firsthand with everyone getting involved, but the ideas that people were coming up with, like incorporating the lower level playground with the upper level one, that's something I wouldn't have thought of. And I think the topography would be pretty unique and cool for that zip line idea that seems to be one of the most popular ideas. But yeah, don't be afraid to give us feedback. I'm excited to get going on the next step of this. The one thing I will briefly say, the thing that made Megaland so special was the community involvement on that. It was amazing how many people, I mean, still to this day, I remember as a kid going door to door, knocking on doors and saying, hey, can you donate pennies for the playground? And I've heard Dan several times talk about how he got his hands dirty building that thing. And I cannot stress the importance of community involvement. Whatever we need to do to make that next phase happen, I think that's probably the hidden element that's the most important, community involvement. Everyone needs to feel like they're part of this. Everyone needs to have a stake in this. And, one of the ideas I had for sponsorship was to have anybody that donates, we could do plaques again. We could do proclamations. You see, we do proclamations all the time. I just want to get as many people involved, but I want everyone to feel like they were part of this playground, because you are, even in the smallest way, by paying your property taxes in one way, shape, or form. This is for sure your playground. So if anybody has any suggestions on how they can, or how we can get more people involved to make it mega, to make that community aspect that we had the first time around, I am all ears. Thank you.
Okay.
I have no comments at this time.
All right.
Okay. That's two presentations. The other one will be rescheduled, and we'll be talk more about that. The next on the agenda is citizens address, like always mentioned, and we should have like a meaningful meetings. And it has been very successful so far. I like to keep each citizens, keep their address in 5 minutes. That'd be great. Okay. I would like to call Dick Semple. Come on, sir.
There's only 4 or 5 of them.
We got more than
Dick,
that.
you could talk for 2 hours. We only have a couple people signed up today.
No,
If you could only see the faces in the audience, guys. Thanks for being here.
Nice meeting you guys, all and ladies, tonight. First of all, a little criticism. You had 2 very visual presentation subjects tonight, the corridor study and the Megaland. In neither one of them did you do the advantage of using that large screen over there to my right to show some of the people in the audience what this is all about. And I think that's a detriment on trying to sell the story. I work with architects and I work with designers. And the most important thing between a designer and the customer is seeing what they're talking about.
Jeff had mentioned that was, didn't you take fault for that? The screen wasn't working, so it wasn't intentional. So forgive us.
I want to get that off the table. All right. I'm here primarily for the Megaland portion of the presentation. I studied the 3 themes that were on the website, and all 3 of them are horrible. I mean, we're taking a negative destruction type themes with aliens, cosmic meteorites hitting the ground, destruction of buildings, and then you're trying to create a hero theme in that. There's just kind of a contradiction of purpose there. And I think that's something, I know there's a few others in the room that feel that likewise as I do about that idea. I think we need to come up with, keep it simple, you know. The whole idea of those 3 themes is money. It's going to cost a lot of money just to build the theme. We're not Disneyland, we're not Universal or Kings Island. This is a free park. People come and go and do what they want to do. Kids in my neighborhood cross into Colerain Park all the time. And there are elements within the 3 themes I will say are positive. Some of the thumbnails that I see are in cocktail napkin kind of approach out there in the lobby. I just kind of expected more from human nature than what I saw out there. I just think whatever we're spending for this company to provide ideas, you're not getting very good bang for your buck. So what I say is there's a few elements, a type of equipment that could be developed, and great ideas. I'll pass, only have 1 copy of this, but I'll give it to Greg to pass.
Thank you.
But it's based on one of the ideas, which was a flower tower, which I refined today in my designs software, which shows some promise. And I think that's the way you should take a look at the whole idea. It started out in July with the kids, okay? That was the right starting point because they're the ones that are hands-on. But the secondary level is the parents. I mean, all parents in this room were kids at one time. And that's to keep that in mind, your own personal experiences of being in parks, what you liked about being in the park, what you didn't like. And that's the way you should look at this analysis of trying to create the right direction for the park's theme. And I think a natural theme would make a lot more sense. You could get public and private partnerships with nurseries and landscaping companies like White Oak Gardens and some of the others over here that might contribute to the overall idea of the landscape plan. Because I think incorporating that old sand pit where kids play at the lower end toward Yellowwood, I think that's a great idea, putting it together and meshing it all one big expansion of a park. And I would put more of the money in the landscaping features and work with the lay of the land, so to speak, the elevated areas near the ball field and going downhill from there. And put the rest, and just be discretionary on the equipment, even if it's like that idea, about using one of those functions in the flower tower, or I had some other ones that I thought were good ideas, the pipe tunnels, the spear spinners, the swing bridge. All those could be done at a reasonable amount of expense. But the rest of the idea, the structuring, the fallen buildings and stuff, there's issues with risk. How far can you take it and not have it go over the edge as far as the children's safety? And of course, there's no scale in all those sketches, so you really don't know anything for sure. So I hope the committee takes it to the next level and tightens it all up so it makes sense. And put dollars and cents to it too, so that the community at large will understand where this is all going. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Dick. That's similar to some comments that I've heard. I've heard that comment already. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Paul? Paul Borghardt?
How you doing, Paul?
Good, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'll keep this very short. My name is Paul Borgarding. I'm a Colerain Township resident. I am the owner of a food truck, and I actually have talked to several business owners, property owners, about setting my truck up and serving out of it, and then I found out that Colerain Township zoning does not approve of that. And I would just like to ask you to consider changing the zoning laws. I do believe that food trucks can bring a lot more to the township than we may currently know. So that's really all I have.
I haven't had a chance to speak to Marty on that, but I'm assuming there has to be some sort of a temporary permit or something, because you'll see malls and different events, they'll do events all the time that have food trucks. But a permanent, I guess that's the issue, was that?
Semi-permanent or permanent.
So you think it'd help if we had different levels, like semi-permanent, permanent, seasonal, recreational, that sort of thing?
That's what I believe. I think, the zoning commission needs to talk it through and probably do a little bit of studying, but yeah.
Have you contacted our zoning department?
Yeah.
I contacted them. I spoke with Marty.
I haven't had a chance to call him, forgive me.
I spoke with Mike also. I know you're busy.
Forgive me, I promise I don't.
And I know you guys.
Hey, sir, do you pick any site? Are you looking for a permanent site, or you plan to go different site in Colerain Township? Is it mainly Colerain Avenue?
It's not on Colerain Avenue. Honestly, there's too much competition on that road for me. But I have a property owner who I've spoken to who would allow me to park there as long as I have, everything is legal to do so. For me, it would just be one site, although there are several other property owners I have spoken to that are amenable to it.
I look at this a little bit like a farmer's market, where we had those popping up for a while there, and then didn't we permit that? Forgive me, my memories escape me on that, but that's kind of how I looked at it. I looked at it almost like a farmer's market, same difference.
If you've got a food truck, there are other attractions that you could probably throw in there with it.
I don't think our zoning specifies the difference between food truck and farmer's market, though, or pop-up shop, or I don't know what I will call Marty, forgive me.
That's fine.
So you're talking about going into the neighborhoods?
Well, you need the traffic
Not
from.
actually into the neighborhood. What I would need is, for example,
Side streets?
like Northbrook Shopping Center, where there's plenty of ample access, ample parking. I wouldn't just park on some residential street and, hope that people show up. That would have all kinds of troubles with traffic and whatnot.
So you already applied to the zoning?
I have not. I'm basically here just to try to put it on everybody's radar that I'd like to try to see something like this happen.
Let me ask you this. What do you think, if you were going to, outside of getting our blessing and zoning and all that fun stuff, the local businesses there, now granted, like Northbrook Shopping Center, you don't have a ton of competition. What are the local businesses in the immediate area going to say? Do you think they'd support you, or, because all the tides rise together, or would it be something like, oh no, we don't need any more farmers markets, killing our business, or food trucks hurting our business? What do you think would be the reaction from the neighbors at any of the sites that you've kind of considered?
It would be one more option as far as food is concerned. I don't imagine any existing restaurants would be too happy about it. They have to follow certain laws that food trucks don't, but they're a brick and mortar, they're a permanent location. I think it would be a positive development. Say, for example, at Northbrook, there is just a Dollar General store in there. And people come to the food truck, they get something, and then they realize, oh, I need to get, toilet paper or something, so they'll stop in there.
Can I ask you if you've considered brick and mortar yourself?
Not much.
Because I would I'd happily put you in touch with some locations if that's something you would consider.
Maybe down the road.
Okay.
One of the reasons I've gotten into this business is, it's cheaper.
Flexibility.
Yeah, I would like to grow into that.
Yeah.
The flexibility and it's more cost effective.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll talk to our administrator here and see what we can do. Thank you.
And so you know, Paul, that is our zoning director back in the corner of the room.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next, Linda, please. Gotcha.
Go. How you doing, Linda?
Good evening, Board. I've just got a few things. Actually, I was sitting there and a few more things came to mind. So the first thing was being on Facebook. Someone had brought to my attention that apparently the dog park, there's like a bunch of burrs out there, and when they take their dogs out there, their dogs are getting full of burrs, and I know that's not a huge problem here, but, we have a dog park and we should maintain it. So I'm just wanting to see if possibly you could talk to whoever's in charge of parks and see if they can do anything about it. There was one complaint that I guess the water has been working there for months on end.
And I called Mr. Mills this morning. This morning, yesterday, yeah. I talked to him about this, and he's looking into this.
Okay.
He's going to contact the park district people, and we're going to look into it.
Okay, great. The other question, well, I've got a few of them. The resource center that was just torn down, is there where it's going to be relocated at?
That's a good question. Chief's not here.
$45,000, we got a grant through the YMCA, I believe it was. They got a grant and they kind of like included us in it, so there's a $45,000 grant that was there for a resource center, and I just wondered where it's at. I believe I read some of the points of it, and one of the things was that I guess 1 hour a week, there's supposed to be a police officer there, and we're also supposed to have a clerk there any hours that the resource center is open. So again, I'm just kind of wondering where they're going to put the resource center, or if it's already someplace and I just don't know about it.
Where did you read that? About having a clerk and an officer there or
It's in
something?
the details of the grant.
The grant that was originally used for that. I assume that went away with the demolition, but forgive me.
There was another one about decorations up at the Springdale and Colerain. Somebody put a couple of mums up there and some pumpkins, and I don't know whether they were stolen or if the administration here decided to take them down. It was just a question that I had about that. And speaking of decorations, I've got a ton of them at my house. So anybody that wants to come by the corner of Sella and Dola Drive, dusk to about 11 o'clock, we have them up, and the whole yard is just filled with them.
Do you give out candy too?
No, not till Halloween. Not till Halloween.
That's what I want.
But we've had people actually taking pictures and videos and,
Cool.
all that. We do it every year for the kids. And at Christmas time, we do the same thing. It's something we love to do, and we love to share it with the neighbors. So we welcome anybody that likes to come by. Speaking back about the memorial in Springdale and Colerain, the lights, I know you know they're out, Greg.
Oh, on Township Colerain, that's
Yeah.
missing rain now or something like that?
Something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
They're not
yeah.
all there, so if we could get
Yeah.
that fixed. Another one was the new businesses and new residents that come to our township. They don't know anything about us. Instead of us waiting for them to reach out to us, is there any way we can reach out to them? You know what I'm saying? Like, we know there's a brand-new neighborhood that's going to be built. Can we, know their addresses and send them, a packet or something? I mean, I just went to a podiatrist today. He's a resident of Colerain Township, his business is in Colerain Township, and he knows nothing about us. He knows nothing about trustees, he knows nothing about the meetings, no one's reached out to him. You know,
Great idea.
he's a young professional guy. He's really, you know, he's really a nice guy, but he knows nothing about us here.
I would hope that real estate agents would, when they're marketing a property, they would at least tell people, here's the local schools, here's the township government.
Or even if you're working with the realtors, you know, if we could put together like a welcome packet and just leave it in there, you know, on the counter or something, that whoever buys the house, maybe they'd see it and pick it up. I mean, he didn't even know where the website was to look at. I mean, you know, we're telling people, look at the website, we've got this, we've got that. Well, they don't even know we have a website.
I believe if you type it in on Google, it's the top hit. But I had an idea to do a pie program if we had somebody that can make pies in their free time. You know, isn't that the whole thing? When you move in a neighborhood, your neighbor's supposed to give you a pie?
The old way they used to do it, they had a welcome wagon, where when you moved into the neighborhood, they would take and bring you out like coupons for different businesses in the area, and it might be a free appetizer given at such and such a restaurant.
Like a coupon book or something.
Yeah,
that's a
something
cool
like
idea.
that, and it just let the new people know that, you know, what businesses were here, and it also got the businesses out to the people. And the last thing is I wanted to find out about the vacant lot, whatever happened with it. You and I were kind of talking back and forth on the vacant lot over on Pippin Road, whatever happened with
Pippin
that.
and Compton, is that what you're talking about?
That guy, the fella took out a driveway apron permit from Hamilton County, and he put in a driveway, and the last time I checked, he has not applied to us to construct anything, so there's nothing
Okay.
constructed, is my most recent
Time's up, but I'd
understanding.
like one more point if I could.
Go for it.
I would love to see more residents, not just volunteering for like all these different groups, but actually volunteering to do some of these things, like answering the phone, or, you know, like getting out these pamphlets to the new businesses or new residents or whatever. I'd really like to see something like that happen. Use the resources we've got in our township rather than going outsourcing everything. Just an idea.
Yes, thank you. A lot of good points there. Real quick, if I could, Jeff, could you remind me to ask Chief Denny about the Resource Center programming, if we've switched that over, and I want to make sure we didn't lose any of the programs in there, because it wasn't really the building that had the value, it was what went on inside the building. And then actually, I love your idea with, I guess, doing something to nominate houses for decorations or something, kind of like we did with the, what was that called, where we read those proclamations a couple months ago?
Beautiful yard.
The Beautiful Yard program, yeah. We should do that for sure with seasonal things like holiday lighting, you know, Halloween as well. And I think that's something that actually a resident could champion that if they want it, bring it to the board, and then we can acknowledge, you know, whatever that, you know, if you had your own committee or something who, I don't know, I love that idea, because we have some people that really go above and beyond to do their holiday decorations, and I don't know, I just remember as a kid how cool that was, and it gives you that sense of community, and I love the pride and ownership and everything that's associated with the yard program and a potential Halloween or seasonal lighting, I keep wanting to say Christmas, but without saying the word Christmas, idea. But yeah, great ideas, great suggestions there, thank you.
The next is Bruce, please.
How you doing, Bruce?
Trustees.
Hello, Bruce.
One of the things that came up with, you know, congratulations on a $750,000 grant. My suggestion is priority should be sidewalks, for whatever that's worth. Now on Megaland. Megaland concepts are based on current trend of comic book heroes, etc. I mean, this is a trend. This trend will wane and end. How many children will stay enthusiastic about this type of prolonged concept park that you're proposing, even if it's in sketch mode right now? How do these park concepts rate with children and parents compared to the more traditional playgrounds of swings, teeter-totters, jungle gyms, etc.? I'm not sure that's really been explored. Construction costs are projected, at least in the documentation I read, $1.15 million. What would be the projected cost for a more traditional playground? Also, what is the annual and 10-year maintenance cost for these concepts
compared to a more traditional playground. More traditional playgrounds, at least in my mind, are pretty robust and paint and so forth, but other aspects aren't needed. How often will the concept park have to be replaced because of lack of interest in township children? As trends change, people's interests may change, and we're going to tear it up and put a new concept in. Okay, what are the increased township liabilities due to these type of concept parks versus more traditional playground parks? From what I'm seeing, I see more risks. It could cause more liabilities come back on the township as lawsuits. And why do we want to draw individuals from all over the region? That's part of the documentation for the grant. Concept parks are for paid parks like Kings Island, et cetera, who can and will change as users once change. You see Kings Island, people don't visit their ride, they tear it down, put in something new. We do not need to draw more people into the township because the roads are already crowded. Anybody drives up and down some of our roads know that we can't handle a lot more people, so you can, make this a regional park. No, thank you. Now, concerning the proposed additional $5 vehicle permissive license fee. Every public entity seems to want more and more taxes from the same taxpayers. In this case, we're talking people who drive cars, and trucks, and property taxes keep going up, and everybody wants to put their hand in their pocket for more and more. Road repair replacement is listed as high by many of the township residents. If more funds are desired for roads, then the township needs to reprogram funds from the other areas to accomplish this task. It really comes down to priorities. You can't do everything, and a lot of people want to do everything.
You can say that again.
But we can't. We're a township, and I like being a township. I like being small. I don't like big bureaucracies. Thus, reduce the other township expenses that are less used by the majority of township residents. The majority of township residents don't use some of the items that we spend a lot of money on. And finally, a little philosophy. Just because you can add a $5 per vehicle fee does not mean you should. So, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
This is my input. The others, you can share it with Jeff and Jeff and Jeff.
You're missing two other Jeffs when you said that. Who we got next? Sharon Slager.
Sharon Slager.
Come on down. The price is right. Would be nice to have theme music. What?
Walk-up music like
Well,
that?
yeah, especially because I don't know what's going on right now, but I like what I'm seeing.
Beautiful, thank you.
Do I have to share? All right, what did I do wrong? Where's the poison? That looks delicious.
It does look delicious. That's a,
Happy Halloween to you, too. It's our go-away gift, Heather.
yeah.
Isn't it Heather and Greg? I took a second shift job, so this will be my last trustee meeting I'll be at.
No.
But I wanted the two of you to know how much I appreciated yous and give you something for your
Thank
Why
you.
it's the last meeting?
Second shift
a
job.
chef-
Second,
second shift. I won't be able to make it here by the time I get off work. So I wanted to give you guys something and tell you how much you guys are both appreciated.
Thank you. It's very kind of you.
I think Dan Unger is probably the best trustee you got up there. Raj, I can't figure out what you're doing up there. And Greg, I sure am going to miss you and Carrie on Facebook.
I won't.
I know you won't. The entertainment's gone.
Yeah, I know.
Now, my the curb on my driveway is cracked, and it cracked like 2 or 3 days after they did it. And when I asked them about it, they said they'd come back and fix it, but it still has not been fixed. Do you know if they're ever going to come back and fix it, or if I'm just stuck with that crack?
I thought you said you were taking a second shift job to fix that crack.
No.
Is it
I'm
on
taking a
the,
second shift job to get the hell out of Colerain, but
Oh, too
Oh,
soon.
I'm sorry to hear
I
that.
can hear you.
Is it on one of the construction joints, or is it just right in the middle of the curb?
it's not actually on the curb. It's on like the one side of the, well, there's like 2 foot and then the crack, and then the rest of the
Can you send me a picture of it?
curb, yeah?
And I'll send it to Public Works.
It's in front of this address that's on your slip?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Kevin had come down one day and looked at it, but of course Kevin's not here no more.
Yeah. What did he,
Have you
what,
seen it?
but what did he say when he looked at it? Do you recall?
He said that they would look into it, and then they said, well, after all the construction was done, they were gonna come around and see what everybody's little nooks and crannies were and fix them, but I've heard nothing.
Well, concrete will crack, and the goal is to try to get it on the construction joints, to have it crack where they tool in a joint. So that's where, if it was one big solid piece that didn't crack, that wouldn't happen. It's gonna crack somewhere. I'll be happy to run by and see if it's on the joint or not. I'm on.
Yeah, well, when I put my house up for sale in May, I don't want, winter coming, I don't want to crack it bigger.
Right, and we don't want water getting in there either, because water, it'll freeze and push it
Right.
apart a little bit.
Right.
I think you'll do well in your house.
Huh?
I think you'll do well in your house. That neighborhood's done really well in
You know
recent
why
years.
everybody's selling? They want the hell out of Colerain.
Well, not everyone wants
There's 4 of them
out.
that went up for sale within 1 week, and the people that bought them are not.
There was a particular day that we looked at that back in May, and on that day, out of 23,000 structures, there were about 55 for sale out of 23,000. So I think a lot of people like it here, and I plan on staying all my days.
Well, in the
I'm
past
sorry that-
month, 4 of them have sold back in my neighborhood, and every time I asked one of them, why are you moving? We're sick of Colerain. Either we're sick of Colerain, or 2 of them live across the street from the meth heads, and they're sick of watching what goes on in meth heads. And apparently, all you guys know, we don't have police patrol in our neighborhood, so they can do whatever the hell they want back there. Unless somebody calls the cops, they ain't coming back there. And that was another thing. Greg, I know you're hot on taking the citizens on patrol.
Mm-hmm.
I have applied 3 times. I was turned down 3 times by Chief Denny.
I'll have to ask him what's up with
I
that.
do not have any kind of a record. Nothing. I'm spotless. Even my driving record is spotless. Yet he left a criminal with a very long record take that course. Now that's just because he doesn't like me, and everybody knows I don't like him. He doesn't do nothing but lie to me. So
Well, I'll ask him. If you move, are you still interested in,
I work second shift now. I can't do it.
so it doesn't matter at this point?
Doesn't matter. I just wanted you to know that's the kind of cliches that everybody has here. I'm
Oh.
sure a lot of people are for him, and I know you guys elected him, but that's the kind of chief you got. If he doesn't like you, you ain't getting nowhere.
We hire him, we don't elect him, but I'll certainly get his side of the story too. Sure.
And for the trustees that are coming up, the poor guy that's going to take Greg's place. I do see on Facebook a lot that they want, somebody that's going to stick up for us and blah, blah, blah. Well, I hate to tell them all, but you 3 took an oath to stand up for Colerain Township employees. So it doesn't matter who gets Greg's seat, he's still going to stick up for Colerain Township
Employees.
employees, yeah, because that's the oath you guys take, and you can't break that oath. And I am done. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for the cookie cake.
No problem.
Rich McVeigh?
Good evening, Rich.
It's great to hear from you guys.
Amen.
Hello, Rich.
Are you going to eat that cake?
All of it.
Good for you. 2 things. The corridor study. You guys took a lot of flack for getting that study done, and well, the thing is, it's done, and we have it now in front of us, and it's something for us to use. And my encouragement for you is to take the input and to hold to the plan. There are going to be people who have disagreements with what's shown. That's understandable. Not everybody agrees with everything. But I say engage them in conversation, and if they don't like what's in the plan, negotiate something better. Just don't back away from the vision that seems to make sense for a lot of people. I'm not trying to say that I agree with 100% of it, but if you have a plan and you don't hold people accountable to it, you don't have a plan. So that's why we have it, and I encourage you to use it in the best way you can. And I'm glad we've got it, so now we can say, this is what we said we want to do, and if we vary from that, we'll say, this is why we varied from it, and we'll all understand why it's happening. Second point is on the Megaland Park. I saw the things in the lobby and online. I have a question relative to who's the target audience? That's not clear to me. Is it, we heard about parents, we heard about young kids. I've heard things online around, what about people with physical disabilities? So the whole issue is, when we're conceiving this thing, who have we really envisioned as the audience that we're trying to appeal to? Be clear about that, because that doesn't jump out at you in what you look at. The other thing I have is a question around data on usage. Somewhere in the report that was for the grant, it says that we should expect 75,000 visitors or to the park, maybe not to the township, per year. Do you know what the source of that data is?
It's a good question. I don't know.
The reason I asked that, because I don't know what it is. Early on in this project, I asked someone if they had any information around the number of kids that use the park. And they didn't have any data. So that prompted me to get to the schools, okay, and get some information, which I'm going to pass out to you. I'll give it to you now while we're talking. Around how many kids, students, live within a mile of the school, within a mile of the park.
You're referring to all of our parks, or just?
This is from the schools. So you're building a park that's right next to Colerain Elementary, okay? And there's 19 kids that live within a mile of Colerain Elementary, or from a mile from that park.
There has to be more than 19.
This is what the school district says.
Let him talk.
It's okay, we can communicate with residents, Raj.
19 kids who go to Northwest school, not Catholic schools, live within a mile of Colerain Elementary.
There has to be more than that.
Well, it says 34 live within a mile, but go to Colerain Middle, which is right next door.
The question is, who's the target audience? Who is the target audience? K through 6, 6 through 9. I don't know.
Isn't it
That's why I
spread
asked the
apart by
question.
age? It's a stream of
What I
ages.
presented to you is, okay, here's what the district is saying relative to where the people are, okay? It's the school data, it's not my data. And I think it's instructive, because it shows who's within a mile and who's within 2 miles. In the broad scheme of things, parks are tied to walkability in communities. That's what we really want to have. I mean, I talked with the zoning director, and parks bring people together and build a sense of community. And
Certainly.
That's what you want to have. But parks that are walkable are different than parks that are drivable, okay? And I'd have not to stop what's going on here, but there are a lot of students and kids, okay, who won't be able to walk to this park, okay? And they have needs. So this evening, I just have you think a little bit about that. We invested $150 million in 3 elementary schools, brand new schools. They're occupied 175 days a year, 8 hours a day. Then they sit there. Okay. So you can see how many students live close to those schools. So thinking strategically about how you're approaching parks and how you can pull together with the school to begin to build neighborhood kind of gathering places is what I'd ask you to think about as you're thinking about this park as well. Someone told tonight that there are some questions about how lasting are the themes. And I'm picking up some of that in social media as well. Now, I would admit that my sense is most of that input is from older people who have more of a traditional sense of a park, okay, than maybe younger people. But there is concern around what the themes are going to look like and whether they're timeless. And they don't seem to me that they'll be as timeless as you'd want. Now, I've talked with Jeff, and I sent him some data where the city of Hamilton has taken upon themselves to take a look at their parks in total, okay? To try to sense, and to put out a request for a quote, kind of like you've done with your corridor study, to take a look at what's going on in Middleton to deal with some of these issues. I mean, we've got neighborhoods that don't have parks. We have walkability issues, trails that we're talking about. And my sense is that what would benefit the township is you had an overall strategy that says, how are we going to approach parks? Is it right for us to invest $1.5 million in this park? Or should we invest $300,000 in this park and $200,000 down by Struble, where those kids can walk to it? I'm not trying to stop you this, but it's kind of apparent to me that we don't have a strategy.
We don't have $1.5 million either.
But you need to have a strategy before you get your money, okay? What happened is maintenance issues came up. We took the park down for safety reasons. We took off on a design effort, had some people to do some work. They come back, we didn't like it. Part of the reason that happened is because on the front side, we really weren't clear about what we wanted. So that's it tells me that the whole thought process around how we want to approach parks and walkability in our community is something that I'd ask that you think about. You know, mothers, kids, strollers, they want to walk to parks when they can. They don't want to have to jump in their car and drive up here, because it won't happen. The only other thing I would say is that on the handouts that were presented, here's a whole lot of input, and Jeff started to talk to this, that was provided by kids, okay? And what I would hope somebody would do is, we're still in the conceptual phases, but you know, you can't tell in what we got out there if ladders are there or if a playhouse is there. So what it's hard for me to pick up on is, this is what users have told you that they want. No, you know, it's pie in the sky. But and we've got concepts. So the real question is, how do you tie the stuff that these people have told you about to the conceptual designs? That's what's not clear to me. I know you're in a rush because you got to get this grant money, okay?
I don't feel like we're in a rush, just saying, but
Well, you are, because his document says we need to submit this by November.
if we were in a rush, we would have built one of the previous designs from,
All I'm saying,
Last
you
summer.
heard my point of view. I just think that the data shows that we've got kids in a lot of areas, and they're probably not going to walk here. And I ask you to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
if I could say, the 19 within 1 mile, that's hard for me to fathom. There's only 19 kids that live within one. That just, I don't know, the age of the data.
You get that stuff from the school district. I mean, I
I
don't
just-
make it up. I don't make it up.
I just can't believe that. I can count 19.
Let's go to the next person.
I got it.
Austin Muser from Joseph Toyota Auto Group.
How you doing?
How are you guys?
Excellent.
As most of you will likely recall, I'm here for Joseph Auto Group. I'm here for them not only on behalf of the dealerships, but also for the other properties that they own and that they lease to other tenants and other employers in the township. Here mostly to talk about the KZF corridor study. We've been following that plan. I've been following it since July, when you all had your presentation out here in the atrium. We expressed some immediate concerns about it, specifically associated with the engineering and the traffic design that's been proposed. We were told to wait, some changes might be made, more input would be gathered, and wait and see what comes. So we went to the meeting in the business community meeting in September.
Thank you for attending that.
And at that one, again, it was a similar story of, we're 90% of the way done, but just hang on, this is still very preliminary, very conceptual. We're not really doing any of the meat of this plan, which is concerning to me, because you have a plan that really has no basis in a study, in facts, in data. We've reached out to the township to ask for a sit-down to discuss our concerns with the plan. We've offered to bring our traffic engineer with us to talk about it, to talk about some of the actual data and the concerns of the plan. So far, we haven't been given that meeting. We also asked, our initial concern was that this plan might be presented to the board for adoption or some sort of affirmation tonight. I gather that that's not happening. But because I wasn't really sure one way or the other, we felt like we should come and be on the record as saying we don't think it would be a good idea for the board to adopt this plan in any formal capacity as it currently stands. Just to get into a little bit of detail about the concerns that we have, I think they've really fallen into three categories, two of which I'll hit on tonight. One is procedure of how the plan's been developed, and one is just a very high level fact that the engineering of it just doesn't work, the traffic engineering of it. We asked our traffic engineer to look at the proposed plan and highlight any concerns that he had, just kind of having a look at it, tell us what you think about it. The median U-turn concept has not been used in this area, and obviously it involves a fair amount of work along Colerain. My understanding is that it was outside the scope of KZF's contract to do the engineering to see if this sort of a traffic realignment would actually work. That hasn't been done. In fact, we've been told that, well, that'll happen later. We'll pick some study areas and we'll do that later on an intersection by intersection basis. That's a concern because you're being asked to adopt a plan that nobody really knows if it's even going to work. The other issue is nobody's done any modeling to see if this proposed plan will actually increase safety, if it will actually reduce collisions. My understanding is that the medians that were put in some years ago are actually doing that. They have increased safety on Colerain Avenue. The problem is that they're ugly, but they have actually had the traffic effect that they were intended to have. Another really just high-level point, I'll give you a handout here in just a minute, but we asked our engineer to do a very quick model, pick one little section of the KZF plan, show us the turn radius of a passenger car, a box truck, 40-foot box truck, a fire engine, and a semi. Show us how that would work. And as you'll see on these diagrams, the passenger truck barely makes it by hopping the curb. The fire truck and the box truck end up in the landscaping on the other side, and the semi goes on the other side of the landscaping. The bottom line is Colerain Avenue is too narrow to actually implement this median U-turn, to say nothing of the intersecting streets that are also going to have to accommodate median U-turns because you're proposing to eliminate all left-hand turns off of Colerain Avenue. That means people are going to have to turn right onto an intersecting street, do a median U-turn on that street, and to go be able to turn left. So that's a concern that we have. There's also, in our opinion, not enough distance between the intersections to allow the stacking that you're going to need, because if you think about it, you're moving people from that light halfway up into the next block, and that's where they're going to be making the turn to go back the other direction or to try and turn left. And the other thing is, unquestionably, it's going to be cost prohibitive to acquire the land that you're going to need to do this. I was struck tonight by the contrast between this proposal and the proposals you've had for your park. Your park said, hey, we've got 3 concepts. Here's 3 ideas. Look at them. Tell us what you think. We'll have a look. We'll see what works. The KZF plan has basically, I mean, we asked at the business community meeting, did you guys consider any other traffic patterns, any other traffic changes? Did you consider leaving it alone, the traffic patterns? And we were basically told, well, no, we really didn't think about any other options. Jeff indicated off the top of his head he didn't think any other options would work, but he also indicated that this plan wouldn't work for 95% of the corridor. So nobody really knows if this plan's feasible. Nobody knows if it's going to do what it's intended to do. It is a pretty picture. It looks nice. If the intent is to use it to go get grants, which is what we were told, that's fine. I don't have any real problem with the township doing that. Our concern would be that if the trustees take any formal action to adopt this plan as it currently stands, that gives it a layer of legitimacy that I don't think it deserves yet. It's putting the cart before the horse. It's building the house on sand instead of pick your analogy. It's coming up with a final plan and saying, this is where we want to go, without doing the base work that you need to figure out whether that's even feasible. So that's our concern. We remain willing and happy to engage with the township. We'd like to engage with the township and talk about our concerns to see if there's some ways that we can adjust the plan, do something else with the plan, make adjustments. But as it stands right now, we just don't see how it would actually work. And we've been told by the township, it probably won't work, but we want a plan, we want to get started. It doesn't do any good to have a plan that going into it won't work. So I would just encourage this board to be careful before you do take any formal action to adopt the plan. I would have expected you to be presented with options. Here's a couple of different options. Here's the pros and cons. Here's the costs. Here's what's going to be required. Here's how much property we're going to have to take. Here's the impact on business owners and other residents in the township. I don't get the sense that that's what you're being given. And so I just encourage the board to be careful.
Thank you, sir.
Two things real quick, not to change the topic. Chuck E. Cheese plans, any?
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of. And Eric, did you want to?
I'd say that's an offline discussion out in the hallway.
That's what I was going to ask.
Your engineering service, is that an in-house engineer that's one of your employees, or is it somebody you use from the outside?
It's somebody we used on the outside. He actually was involved in the original corridor study done, 15, 20 years ago, whenever the last one was done, to actually try and implement the
I was going to say, a lot of people might consider that wasn't adequate, which is what has brought us to this day. I would, obviously, our guy's sitting here getting beat up. If you and him want a conversation out in the hallway and set up a meeting time, he's obviously during his presentation invited input. Have you reached out to him, or?
We reached out to Jeff. I believe we've had some discussions with Eric as well. The engineer has.
I mean, obviously, we're at a point where it sounds like you two probably need to have a conversation. I'd be surprised if Jeff Mills said this isn't going to work. Did he say that?
Jeff said that it is highly unlikely that this plan, as it's currently designed, is actually going to work.
Right, well, and it's not done yet. So I would encourage you two to arrange a meeting and try to work out some of your differences of opinion. So,
Austin, I would, is it done? Okay. I would like to meet with your business community. I'd like to hear the concerns.
Okay.
So if you could set up a meeting, I'll come to
Okay.
talk with you guys.
And while you're at it, Raj wants some sidewalks too, so,
Yeah, that's my priority.
let's get, amen.
and I would, but before either one of you walks out of the room, exchange phone numbers so that you two can get your differences negotiated.
If you'd like to write down a phone number, that'd be great.
I think it's on
Or
there.
you're gonna call.
Wasn't it on there? Oh, sorry.
I will give you guys as well.
Yeah, it's nice
What were
that,
these
it's
again,
nice
traffic
that
studies
this,
or something?
These are just the turn radius of a couple different types of vehicles.
Do you have one that we can give to Eric on this? Because here, let me give one. You got one for more than enough, excuse me, for everyone.
and I'll
Turning radius, that's a good thing, right? Because then they have to buy more cars
I
from
will count
you.
on you two arranging a meeting with each other.
I have one of those.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Austin. So next is Kathy Moore, please.
How you doing, Kathy?
Just great.
Excellent.
First of all, I'd like to address Northgate Mall. I've been notified that there are some changes with the police contract for Northgate Mall. This all started on October the 27th when a contract was submitted for approval. We had police officers here. Everybody wanted this passed, and Raj had a problem with a few things and had a problem with the insurance provision. So I've been at this meeting several times and asked if anybody had a signed contract of that, or a signed contract of the mall agreement, and you've not. I've sent in several public record requests for a signed copy of the mall contract, and there are none. So finally, Chief Denny sent me an email that and I received this on the 14th, and he said, "I know you are wanting to obtain a copy of the mall contract and that we have not had a document to provide you. I wanted to provide you an explanation about the delay. We do not have a signed agreement with Northgate Mall yet. The officers are working at the mall as independent contractors until the contract is signed." So he said that the removal of the insurance provision is causing the delay. I know that was really a big item, which Raj was opposed to. So I just am very disturbed that in 2 months, we've not heard one word about what has happened with this. Evidently, we don't have the contract that we had with Northgate Mall. Our officers are working there, and they are being paid by the mall. And I just ask, why was this not brought to the attention? Where's the transparency? Why were we not told that the contract that everybody was in favor of was not approved? The current contract is effective October the 1st through December the 31st, and scheduling is being done by the police off-duty detail coordinator. The mall will now pay for court appearances, and officers are paid by the mall directly. The pay rates for the officers have changed, and they are now $40 an hour, where before it was $62 or $64. I would like to request, on behalf of myself, on behalf of the board, on behalf of all residents, that we are provided a PowerPoint presentation of exactly what we do have at the mall. I'm sure plenty of people think we've got exactly what we had, and we don't. And nobody has mentioned that anything is any different. And I'm sure that $5 million insurance provision was great for Tabani. They were getting a real sweet deal, and now they aren't willing to take that on themselves. For the majority of this year, we have not had any participation from our department heads. I believe the reason given was because the department heads were being attacked. I've seen where department heads have gone to neighborhood meetings and several focus groups provided, but they don't attend the meetings for the public, which is videotaped, so people at home can also hear from those department heads. I've gotten up here meeting after meeting and asked questions. I've made comments with no response. Mr. Insco posts on Facebook that Kathy Moore will not hear from anyone until after the lawsuit. That's common sense. Well, that is not common sense. There are many residents watching this, and they are being ignored also.
Not true.
By not having any questions answered. Can we please have one trustee be an adult and see that we get our questions answered? I'm asking Raj, as the president of the board, that you be that adult and see that we can get our questions answered, and that the department heads are here to answer those questions. So that we can also put this little game behind us. We played this game where I ask a question, you all look at Mr. Mills. Mr. Mills says he'll address it in his report, and time after time, Mr. Mills says nothing. You have allowed this to continue with no repercussions. Again, you are negligent in your performance of your responsibilities. I attended the zoning hearing for the zone change for the Duke property last week. Several weeks ago at the CIC meeting, Mr. Mills stated there was no financial information to report. At this zoning meeting, the application states that Jeff Mills applied for a zone change on the behalf of Duke, and the charge for a filing fee was $1,477. a legal notice, $60, and a $5 certified mail fee. The board was not aware of those expenses at the CIC meeting, and you were not told about them. I wonder what else the board is not being told about what is going on in the CIC. You have a member of the CIC that asks questions, but you're not interested in having an answer for those questions. You are responsible for our tax dollars, and I would really appreciate it if you would start acting like you're responsible. The motor vehicle license tax, that's another $5 fee for the township. Currently, we have a $25 township tax on there already. And as this man said, just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to do it. Mr. Unger, you've stated you've asked our department heads to budget wisely and spend money wisely, and you didn't want to increase taxes for anybody. I was going to ask if there were going to be any corrections to the minutes, but I see you're doing that. And I'd also like to provide you, has any of the board seen the contract that we have with Northgate Mall?
I did not see it.
Dan?
The
Current
off-duty contract?
The current contract.
No, Chief, I haven't seen many of them. Chief Denny takes care of the off-duty stuff. Going back to your comment about we don't respond to questions, and for those at home that are watching, our counsel has advised us not to engage Kathy Moore in conversation. She's filed numerous lawsuits, and anything we say ends up on reports to Columbus and everything else. So until the lawsuits are settled, we really shouldn't engage Kathy Moore in conversation.
And if it were about the lawsuit or anything to that matter, I would agree. But this is about grants or a motor vehicle tax.
Well, the motor vehicle tax, there's a public hearing scheduled for that for people to comment.
Let me tell you something. The questions you ask in the meetings, if you could send the email, we were better prepared to answer. You asked us some of the questions, we were an idea. If you could able to, that's what we encourage people. If you send the, when you get the agenda, see the agenda, you got it right away. So these are the questions I'm going to ask you at the trustees meeting. So we'll be well prepared to answer the questions.
Well,
if you put right in the spot certain things. I respond to your email.
You responded.
I respond to your email.
You did.
Okay.
I've
Now,
sent a
you
couple
cannot
of-
blame me, that I'm avoiding to write things that, any question you ask, not answered. We are not answered. But this is the encouragement we made. The reason I put that 5 minutes, the engagement with the residents is to have the meaningful meeting. Some people, like today, kind of went pretty far. So anybody can talk. We still can able to continue our trustee meeting. That's the main purpose for the trustee meeting is to conduct the business. Okay, the hearing, the resident address secondary. This is by the law, by state law, by the sunshine law, everything. So if we could, we are allowing the trustee, as I am the board president, allowing the trustees to speak, to address, show their concerns. But if you could able to say it, send all of us the email, the answer you're going to ask, the question you're asking, the answer you're seeking, and we will be prepared on Tuesday, can able to give you the answers.
Okay, I have sent emails, and I get no answer from an email.
I always answer
Oh,
email.
I know you do.
I know.
You do, but I'm talking about Chief Denny. It took 2 months, practically. I've sent messages to Jeff Mills. Eventually, he'll say, I received your request, but I don't get an answer. If I send an email to Dan or Greg, I get nothing.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
You just read the one I sent you last,
Well,
like
That
2
was a
weeks.
text message.
Oh,
You
that's
sent
even-
somebody-
that's-
Not me,
That's
somebody
even
else you
what?
sent.
That's even, no, it was an email to you.
Anyway, we would like some answers. You say you'd like to have a meaningful meeting and it to be successful. I don't look at that as successful when people get up here and they get no answers. So I'm just asking.
I get answers.
I keep my promise, the meeting is a meaningful. That's our goal. That's my
appreciate
goal.
that.
I don't know about other guys, my goal is, as a president of the board, make sure the meeting is meaningful, very successful, and we set that future, the future agenda for the benefit of the township. So I'll assure you that, that procedure will be done.
Okay, thank you. And I want one other thing, Dan, since you're so receptive to taking advice from the attorney, he hasn't given you absolutely good advice in the past.
We have one more, thank you. The last person, Christine Freeberg.
How you doing, Christine? Hey, hey.
Couple of things. First, on the Colerain Avenue corridor study, I have to agree with everything the guy from Joseph has presented, 1,000%. I also agree with Bruce, who came up. I grew up in this township. I don't want this to be a big city, which is what it seems like our administration wants to do. I like things the way they are, simple. But unfortunately, since I've left and come back, boy, this township has taken a turn for the worst. I want to say that I'm not suing you for information, Dan, Raj, and Greg, but I do listen to the meetings, and I watch the meetings from home. I do feel there's a lot of legitimate questions, not from Kathy or Stephanie, but other residents that are not being answered. And all I see is all three of you, let's go to Jeff Mills and see if he answers it. It is consistent, and I've seen it for the past 2 years. I was really hopeful as we come to this election, can't wait till it's over.
Amen.
But, I was really hopeful that, we did move forward, but all I have seen was rubber stamping Dan and Greg.
Not true.
To Jeff Mills's request. I remember Matt Walhart was just speaking a couple of months ago, talking about the processes. He's got a good idea. Why is it that you guys cannot table these proposals and just have another discussion at the following meeting? Everything is just like, okay, we're going to vote for it. We're going to vote for it. I mean, it's been a rubber stamp for the past 2 years. And I'm frankly hoping that somebody who is going to be elected to this office is going to stop this and maybe make Colerain great again. As for the Megaland project, I don't like any of the designs. They're horrible. They're destructive. I don't think that much thought was put into it. It's like, okay, let's make it a theme. We are not Kings Island. We are not Disneyland. I don't want that kind of traffic there. I've got enough problems with two big subdivisions on Thompson Road. I can't stand it. So that's what I have to say. And in closing, I have a few quotes about leadership. One is from Napoleon. A leader is a dealer in hope. Another one from Tony Blair. The art of leadership is saying no, not saying yes. It is very easy to say yes. And also my favorite from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, concerned citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. That's all I have to say.
That's my favorite quote, Christine. That's my favorite quote. A small group of people can change. Yeah. All right. That concludes the citizens' address. Let's move towards administrative reports.
Yes, thank you, Board. Tonight, Chief Denny and Jeff Mills are both excused. I believe there's no report out of the fire department, so Mr. Mike Iona, if you're prepared to give your report.
Good evening. Trustees, don't have much. Really just an update on Schuster. So far, staff has gotten back their request for quotes. We did receive 2 bids. We sent it out to, I don't even know how many contractors. I mean, it was an entire list was provided. So we did get 2 bids. We've worked out some of the details with the bidders, and we're looking to schedule it in based on all the other timelines that we have to meet for legal notification, posting on the site, and all the different channels we got to go through for us as a city, or excuse me, a township, to go ahead and demolish private property. We're looking at a timeline for about early to mid-December. So I had the contractor promise us that it would be done before Christmas. So we're moving as fast as we can. Of course, we do have the other channel that we're looking to acquire the property. So there's a couple moving parts with that. Staff has also looked into some of the outstanding debts. We were made aware that there was an outstanding water bill associated with the property. We looked into that to see if that would transfer to the township if we were to purchase the property. After a discussion with the Cincinnati Water Department, that in fact will not transfer to us if we purchase it. That stays with the estate of the current property owner. So that's the big update there. As it pertains to the citizen's address with Mr. I think it was Borgerding and the food truck. Paul, yeah, okay. Staff has talked to him about food trucks and food truck regulations. They currently are not permitted in Colerain Township. If that's something that you all would like to change, I've got a lot of experience in dealing with that. In fact, one of the first things that I noticed with our zoning was that it was not permitted. Food trucks, there's a lot of issues associated with those. You've got a lot of different operations, as you pointed to, Trustee Younger, with the different operations. You have
That's Unger, I'm Insco, close enough. You haven't been here that long, it's all right. I forget. Just don't call me Ross.
So you do have a lot of different issues, though. You know, you do have some that set up as like more of a festival. Some of these kind of are like quasi-permanent operations. Some of them just show up, you know, a one and done. So it's just a one-off.
So how are we having food trucks at the 4th of July?
That's more of like a festival permit.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a different operation, whereas like through the zoning, it's more of like a regular standardized type of thing. But yeah, so if you guys are interested in pursuing something like that, you know, staff would.
It's a weird thing. I'm having trouble making my own opinion on that because I've seen one on it's in Mount Airy on Colerain Avenue.
He has really good stuff because I stopped there.
I haven't stopped there because I remember what was there before and it just looks out of place to me. And I don't know, I bet he has good ribs. Isn't that what he sells, ribs?
Yeah,
I love ribs.
He has really good food there. I did stop one night and check it out.
But so I have mixed feelings on where, you know what I mean? Just
Yeah, exactly, it is. It's about getting the right dynamic, the right location.
Exactly.
Obviously, we want to be far away from brick and mortar restaurants where people have actually, you know, invested a lot of money in those. They don't want the competition. But I think as the applicant was saying, I mean, it's funny, when I thought of food trucks, I thought of the same site that he was thinking, which is like the Northbrook Shopping Center. It's an underutilized shopping center, a great way to breathe new life or vibrancy into it would be to allow, you know, some type of food truck, provided you know, that it properly integrates with the character and form of the surrounding area. He's doing things right, like, you know, picking up the trash, maintaining the property. The operation is done in an orderly fashion, you know, things like that, so.
yeah, we'll have to continue this dialogue as we develop our opinions on it because it is I don't know, I have mixed feelings on it.
If you'd like, staff, I could look into it and prepare you a memo on maybe some of the positive and negative of it.
Yeah, positive and negatives, I could appreciate that, yeah. That'd be great.
Thank you, Mike.
No problem.
All right, and for my administrative report, I will try to quickly answer some of the questions that I know that I can answer based off of the things that were raised today. The mums and pumpkins at the corner of Springdale and Colerain, I was not aware of those, so I don't believe that those were necessarily township mums and pumpkins, but I can certainly look into that to see if we did place it there. If it was placed there by a resident, you know, I can't necessarily dictate. I don't believe we took any of those and got rid of them, but there's always a chance. Also, the lights on the memorial, we were aware of that. We got a quote to fix that several weeks ago, so we'll have to follow up on that and see where that stands for the final fix. In Royal Heights, Typically with a road project, at the very end of it, there is a punch list that's created of outstanding items. That's usually done in coordination with both our roads department and the vendor, the contractor. And so that should be coming, but usually that's the last thing. So if there are, defects like that occurred between, initial install and final, usually it doesn't get fixed until the very, very end of the project. So that's something to keep in mind. And then data in terms of the parks, we actually installed vehicle counters at the parks this past spring. I think we first installed them in April. We didn't install them at every park. I think we put them primarily at Colerain, Clifford, and Heritage. We wanted to see what kind of vehicular traffic we get in the parks, and so that was the number that was used to derive the $75,000 individuals that come to our parks on an annual basis. So we kind of took the 8 or 9 months that we have at this point and extrapolated it out. On another note, this is our last meeting before an election. Elections are very important, and so I just wanted to encourage everybody to get out, vote, do your homework, because as they always say, we don't always get the government that we may want, but we get the government we elect. So keep that in mind, and I wish everybody the best that is running for election at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Great report. The next on the agenda is Trustees report. Dan, Greg, want to go?
I can, I guess. Through the course of the review of minutes that I did from 1997 through 2004, I'd like to congratulate Pat Quinn. He was voted on he was hired on this date 17 years ago in 2002. And I made a note of that because I saw we had another meeting on October 22nd. So happy 17 years with us, Pat.
He's a great employee.
Do what?
He's a great employee. Thank you for acknowledging him.
The folks from Sovereign that showed up at recent meetings, I did meet with a group of 8 or 9 of them Saturday a week ago to over on site to listen to their concerns. Some of the items that were brought up during the citizens' address, we authorized Jeff Mills to operate the CIC. So when he goes out and does stuff as a group, he's the executive director of it, so that's what he does. The $5 motion, I think, is to have a hearing to talk about it. That's all it is a hearing to talk about it. I'm not in favor of that. I'd like to get some input and hear what people say. The county just increased the sales tax by 0.25%, and Queen City Metro has something on the ballot in March that they say would provide money for streets in Colerain Township that Metro buses operated on, so I surely wouldn't consider that until I saw how that March election turned out. Kathy, you comment about not getting responses from us. I have repeatedly asked you to not send emails to all 3 of us. In the event one of us would hit reply all, that would create an electronic meeting. So you also made a comment, Larry doesn't give good advice. I think we've won everything we've gotten into.
That's why you're in a lawsuit.
Another one, and I've got another complaint you made to talk about also, but the ones I think we haven't lost anything, have we? You don't have to answer that, but I don't think we have. I don't think we have. And keep in mind, when you see the trustees kind of defer to Jeff for an answer, we don't talk outside of these meetings because that would be against the law for us to have a conversation about township business outside of the meetings. I know those of you at home and those of you in the audience who look at the trustees and, I don't know what Greg's thinking. It's because we do not talk outside of meetings. The Megaland proposals are what human nature has brought forward. I've received comments about the darkness of some of the themes, and they're going to have to go back to the drawing board on some of the stuff, it sounds like to me. And then the other thing is as a follow-up, there's been a lot of conversation over the last year and a half here about the 15 W-2s that were brought up with the firefighters and you paying into the Social Security rather than
We paid into Social Security
right.
because they were part-time employees.
And we have, and that is correct. And it got to the point where 4 residents swore out affidavits against the township back on June 3rd. Those 4 residents are Carrie Davis, Kylan Peck, Kristen Campbell, and Jacob Davis, and each one of those is notarized by Emily Rentschler. They made a complaint to the auditor that our fiscal officer was not doing things properly and failed to perform a fiscal duty expressly required by law. As of July 31st, the state auditor was unable to find any fault with what our fiscal officer had done, so they contacted those four and asked if, please provide more information, because we can't find anything wrong with what you've provided so far. So they did go ahead and provide more information, and it's quite lengthy, and it's pages and pages, but at the end of the investigation, and I'll read from this last paragraph from the Chief Legal Counsel of the Auditor of State, after due consideration and deliberation, the Auditor of State has determined that your complaint has failed to demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence that Mrs. Harlow has violated a specific duty imposed upon her or that she has committed any act expressly prohibited by law. So after all that bluster for a year and a half, you know, Heather's done nothing wrong. And the reason I bring that up is I haven't seen this posted anywhere, not that I look at social media or anything, but I wanted people to know that part of the reason as trustees and as a fiscal officer that we sit back and wait and wait and wait for answers is we want to make sure we're doing everything right. And we don't want to run up a bunch of legal costs for the township. And so at the end of the day, Heather, I'm going to ask that you include these documents in the minutes of this meeting, because if anybody in the future goes back and looks at all these complaints about the W-2 situation years ago, I want them to see that there was a final answer to it. And
Happy to do that.
And so I'm asking that all those zip files, and if anybody would like to read that, please make a public information request, and we have it in a zip file, and it can be sent out to you.
Happy to send it.
So you were cleared, Heather, after all the
Well, of course I was.
complaining and accusations and all that, and it was all for naught. So I just wanted to make sure that people saw that, especially those of you watching at home who watch these meetings and listen to various people make wild accusations. At the end of the day, you were cleared. So that is the conclusion of my trustee report, and I yield the balance of my time.
Never thought I would hear such beautiful words. Thank you, Dan. So a couple things. Actually, Chris Henson from the Historical Society is here, and I got this awesome invitation. They're proud to announce their 55th anniversary open house, Wednesday, November 20th, 6:30 to 8:30. 7 p.m. will be presentations and awards. So the public's welcome to come to that, and they're a great group of volunteers that do wonderful things in our community, so thank you for the invitation on that. I also want to cordially invite everyone out. I've been doing like a random thank you thing, basically, for each of the last few months, once I determined that I wasn't going to rerun for office, just as a way to say thank you. We went tubing and down the river. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate everyone that joined us for that. And then we did, the last one, we tried to break McDonald's ice cream machine. We did a free ice cream social. Anybody that showed up, I bought them ice cream. And this Friday is going to be a free Zumba event. So I imagine everyone here is going to show up 7 to 9 p.m. From 7 to 8, I'll do a super beginner class that literally anyone, you can just stand still even. It'll be so easy. And then 8 to 9, we'll get totally wild. How's that? But that's my free event for this month, for this Friday. Everyone's welcome to join us. And then we'll do another one in November. I've yet to announce what that is yet, though, so stay tuned on that. I'm going to, there's only 2 candidates here. I can't believe this is 14 days before the election, and only 2 candidates were here tonight. We got Jeffrey Baker, who's running for fiscal officer, and Todd Allen, who's out in the rotunda right now. Looks like he's using the restroom. Not in the rotunda, that'd be weird. But nonetheless, I wanted to defend each candidate and say something nice about them, okay? So I'm going to start with Joe Wolterman first. Anybody that said that he was bought and paid for by Rumpke, that's a crazy comment. Joe is more than capable of standing on his own. He's a good guy. He hired me many, many years ago. That has nothing to do with it. But nonetheless, he gave me some of the best advice that anyone's ever given me, much less a candidate for a trustee. And he told me, he said, now technically, keep in mind when he told me this, we were running against each other for 2 seats. This is about 6 years ago. And he said, Greg, I can look at you one of 2 ways. He said, I can look at you as an asset, or I can look at you as a liability. He said, and I look at you as an asset. And that really meant a lot to me, because technically we're running for the same seat, but he was still looking at me as an asset to this community. And that's exactly how I look at all these candidates that are running for my seat. That's how I look at all of our employees. That's how you should look at everyone in life, because everybody has a different strength or weakness. Joe would do a great job as a trustee. I certainly wish him the best. Next person, Matt Wallert. So even though I get the criticism that he just moved here, I don't like that necessarily myself either, but just because someone just moved to our community doesn't mean that they can't do the right thing. It doesn't mean that they have poor morals or ethics or anything like that. He's given me his word that he doesn't do attack campaigns or anything like that, and so far, he hasn't done anything like that, and you have to sometimes give people the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't matter who his friends are, if you like them or don't like them. That's not necessarily who they are. So so I just wanted to defend him on that. Even though he just moved here, it's not the end of the world. You can still, as long as you put the time and energy into this position, you can be a great trustee no matter how long you've lived here, in my opinion. And with that being said, he's a very smart guy. If you talk to him, you can have a really intellectual conversation, and I would encourage everyone to do that. And then the last trustee, who's still in the rotunda, as I'm about to say nice things about him, I'm going to defend his bankruptcy, and I can do that because I've filed it myself, and I understand what that's like to go through. If someone files bankruptcy, context is really, really important, okay? I filed because I was a victim of predatory lending, and I think most people understood that. If you file bankruptcy because you have, you got arrested or you have some sort of a drug problem or something like that, that's a real problem. If you file bankruptcy because you spent the last year of your child's life being by their side, that's noble. Those are the kind of people that should restore our faith in humanity. You shouldn't criticize someone that does the right thing for the right reasons under a horrible circumstance that none of you would wish on your worst enemies ever. Anyway, I wanted to defend him on that because he deserved it. And then I want to say something nice about him like I have about everyone else. He's by far the most involved candidate out of all the trustees running, and I think that's something our community deserves. Because being involved, the more involved you are, you're not going to make the bad decisions, or if you make one that someone disagrees with, people will certainly at least respect the time and energy you put into that. And also, his inspiration is pure. There is no doubt in my mind, if you're running for office to honor your late son passing, that is absolutely, that inspiration from that will certainly carry you through the hardest times in your life and the most difficult parts, which every trustee will go through. So with that being said, I think the board has done such a good job that there's really nothing contentious. It's hard, I imagine it's difficult to campaign when there's just not a lot of contentious stuff in our community right now. And I believe that this election is tailor-made for the candidate with the most money. I predicted about 6 weeks out that the candidate with the most money would win this. And right now, that's Wallert. If that's who you're supporting, keep doing what you're doing. If you don't support him, then you need to step it up and help the other two candidates, because that's who I believe is winning right now. And no matter who wins, I've made it very clear from the get-go that there should be a peaceful transfer of power. I've offered to swear them in. I will certainly help them get acclimated in any way, shape, or form. And any new trustee, my advice to them would be pretty simple. You can't make everyone happy no matter how hard you try or how good your intentions are. But you should listen to everybody, because you can learn something from anyone, no matter what, because we all have way more in common than not in common. And my final thing would just be about the school levy, because no matter who's sitting in my seat next year, they're set up for success. They are not inheriting any messes, and I do worry about the school levy. I hope everyone takes the time to look into it. Myself personally, I know a lot of candidates don't want to go on record to say if they're supporting it or not supporting it, just because you're alienating people, and I totally get that, but I'll go on record and say I am supporting it. If you don't trust the people in charge of the money, don't support it. It's that simple. At the end of the day, I want kids to have as much, if not more, than what I had, and I will for sure support the levy, and I hope everyone has those opportunities as I have had. I think that concludes my trustee report. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, let's continue. I got,
Either's yelling out in the middle of a meeting. Sorry.
let's continue the meeting. I got a few things to report. Like I said in the meeting, that this is a vital part, safety, Colerain Scribble. Month ago, I went to that safety board meeting, do something about this, reduce the crash on the intersection. They installed the pole with the reflector poles, which kind of people turning left from the Colerain, old Colerain, to Colerain Avenue, US 27 to right lane. Also, people turning from Stubble Road left to the Colerain, kind of they see the reflectors, and that's a monumental steps for that intersection to reduce the more crash over there. And like I said in the previous meetings, I saw the terrible crash right in front of my eyes.
To be clear, it was a motorcycle accident,
Yeah,
right?
it's a motorcycle guy.
That's the one you're referring to?
I don't know if he survived or not. So they installed that. They installed the reflector. The next thing, they're going to come into the October meeting, November meeting, they're going to talk about more safety things they're going to do. Colerain Avenue, especially on the Stubble Road, Colerain, the lighting, signal lights, and putting the flashing light right before you come into the intersection, make the people reduce the speed. And also, we're going to talk more about that. They're going to be in the trustees meeting. I'm also meeting with the planning director of the district this Friday. There is a money called safety fund, and Jeff Park gave me some numbers to put that sidewalks from the Northwest High School in the Pippin Road up to Stubble Road. It's very bad. Kids walk on the grass, and few kids got hit before. Now in the nighttime, you barely can see. So that's my very primary goal, try to install. So I'm going to talk to them how we can get safety money. I think, Jeff, we gave about $600,000, roughly around that, about 3,120 feet long. And also I'm working with the Bill Blessing, also with the Senator Bill Sides. He's number 3 guy in the State House. So this number 1, and keep working on that boys and girls club. We need to help our children. This is very important. That's our obligation to help the kids. It won't cost any taxpayers' money. It's all contact with the big corporations, and they did this in Price Hill, very successful. They're doing it in Westchester, very successful. I'd like to happen in Colerain. And these are the report I like to give, which is very important to me. Okay, that concludes the trustee reports. The next is a new business.
Thank you, Board. First up tonight with new business from the Fire Department is Fire Chief Frank Cook.
It's so quiet in here tonight. This is the weirdest thing.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
I have 2 items for you to consider this evening. The first one relative to a motion to accept grant funding from the Ohio Department of Public Safety. But before I get into that, I'd like to bring to your attention that the supporting documentation regarding this agenda item that was part of the agenda packet was incorrect. I provided for you a copy of the correct letter of the award for the grant for you to review. So just want to make note of that for the record.
Thank you.
So first item is I'd like to recommend adoption of a motion for acceptance of $2,690 in grant funding. This request is from the State of Ohio's Public Safety Priority 1 grant that we applied for. These funds will be allocated towards the purchase of airway training mannequins for the department's training division. These training mannequins will be used to help train the department's paramedics in advanced airway management of critical ill and injured patients.
I would motion that we accept that grant funding.
I second it. Any discussions? Okay. I have comment. Chief, that was Chief, that's a good thing that you found the grant and went after that. It's very good training apparatus for our firefighters, our first responders.
Well, thank you.
Great job, Chief.
The only way we stay proficient at our skills is to continue.
I agree. Okay, any further discussions?
Not for me.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Rinsko?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you. And the second item is recommend the approval of a resolution authorizing the disposal of surplus items valued at $2,500 or less. The township departments periodically evaluate the existing fleet and equipment inventory for items that are no longer of value to the township's operations and that can be sold to external parties. So the list that I'm about to present to you is on behalf of not only the fire department, but also the police department as well. The items to be auctioned off will be done so through the Gov Deals agency for the disposal of the following items. There are 3 skids of police equipment that include light bars, a Dodge Charger, partitions out of Dodge Chargers, and a skid of various makes of light siren control boxes. The next group of items is a 2 V-bottom boats with trailers, 2 Honda motors, and 2 skids of old steel equipment. That includes parts. They're not really usable. They're more for somebody else to use parts of saws, trimmers, and leaf blowers that are no longer serviceable or usable. 2 skids of various makes of light bars from fire equipment, and then 1 skid of 3 old positive pressure blowers that we used to use for ventilating buildings that are no longer serviceable.
I would motion that we dispose of township vehicles and equipment valued at $2,500 or less.
And there's a resolution for that.
Yes, there is. This is resolution for disposal by sale of vehicles which are obsolete, unfit, or unneeded for public use, ORC Section 505.10.
And I would motion for as Heather has read it.
Okay, I second it. Any further discussions?
Not for me.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Rinsko?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
This is that resolution.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Board. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You too.
All right, Board, our next items are from the Public Services Department, and I will be handling those in the absence of a director. So the first item for consideration is a motion authorizing the purchase of capital equipment, specifically snowplows. Consistent with current practice, all capital purchases are brought before the Board of Trustees for approval. The total budget for these 2 purchases was $14,000. The actual purchase price for these 2 items is $13,800 or $200 under budget. So I would recommend adoption of a motion to purchase 2 snowplows that were included in the 2019 capital budget.
I would motion that we do such a thing.
I second it. Any discussions?
Not from me.
I think snow time coming.
It's coming.
Ready for it.
Yep,
Okay, streets be cleaned.
that's right.
Thanks, Jeff. All right.
Mr.
Roll call?
Rinsko?
Yeah.
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion authorizing the administrator to submit state capital grant application for the Megaland replacement project. So every 2 years, the state of Ohio starts the process of collecting potential projects for inclusion in the state's capital budget. In prior years, the state has delegated this review of potential projects to a local community group. In Hamilton County, that's typically been the Cincinnati Business Committee, or the CBC. So the state capital grant process is a highly competitive process, and it moves fairly quickly. They just announced, I think a week ago, their application. So we were able to get that ready before you all so that you all could review that in sufficient time. So the difficulty is that, this is our one shot to have the board kind of tell us if you're okay with us moving forward with this grant application. The final submitted grant could change slightly, and the deadlines and materials may change, but I think the anticipated deadline and submission date is November 1st, so that's unlikely at this point. So I would recommend adoption of a motion authorizing the administrator to submit a state capital grant request for the Megaland replacement project and to sign all related documents that may be necessary and relevant to obtaining the financial assistance.
Okay, we have a motion to authorize our administrator to submit a state capital grant for the Megaland replacement project.
I will motion that we do such a thing to get it on the floor.
I second it. That's a great thing that seeking that grants from the state. It really helps us to build a great park. Okay. Roll call?
Go ahead. So that'll be based on what was presented here tonight, or can we change that, or?
Not necessarily. So what's going to happen after this stage is then we're going to submit our grant to the CBC. They're going to invite in the different communities that they think are worthy for a presentation. We will give them a presentation on what we're trying to do. So what we're trying to do, that conversation will be all about the playground and what we want, in terms of the direction the board has given us. And so then they will make some final determinations that they will send up to the State House. State House will tell them how much money they have, and then they will start to disperse funding in advance of July 1st. So, it's a pretty quick and tight
But
timeline.
we can make some adjustments to what our Megaland.
Yeah, they're
concepts.
not going to be deciding on the
Okay,
exact
that
concept or
answers
anything
my
like
question.
that.
Thank you.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Isko?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to set public hearing on December 3rd, 2019 and December 10th, 2019 in consideration of a $5 permissive license fee. So, with the most recent state biannual budget this past July that they adopted, the state of Ohio enacted a new law that allowed townships to adopt an additional $5 per vehicle motor vehicle license registration fee. Colerain Township should consider the adoption of this fee in order to make additional progress on the enhancement and replacement of township roads. This fee would allow the township to address an additional 0.4 to 0.5 miles of roadway each year. If you would refer to the attached memorandum and proposed resolution for more detail, this process requires 2 public hearings if you were to consider adoption. If you all, feel at this time that it's maybe not in the best interest to move forward, we can certainly not take action at this time because there are certainly fees associated with legal ads and things like that that we have to do with setting the public hearings. So that's something for you all to consider as you deliberate. But I would like to recommend adoption of a motion for a public hearing to be set to consider the adoption of a $5 permissive license fee on December 3rd, 2019 at 6 p.m. in the Colerain Township Trustee Chambers and on December 10th, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the Colerain Township Trustee Chambers.
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it to get it to the floor.
Good discussions?
Our residents deserve a right to speak on it, and I hope they show up to the public hearing.
Right. Now, I have a question. If there's a resolution we need to pass, there's a resolution there.
Not today. That resolution is for consideration, so
Right.
after the public hearing on December 10th.
After the public hearing, because I saw the resolutions attached to this agenda.
Correct. That's
I thought you were gonna, okay, we're not passing the resolution.
Not passing resolution today.
I just want to, okay,
And I don't have our regular meeting schedule in front of us. Do we have meeting scheduled both of those nights?
We do not have a meeting scheduled on December 3rd, so we would have to have a special meeting strictly for the public hearing. The way that the ORC is written around this law is that you have
30
to
days.
have 2 public hearings, one
No, 10
within
days.
3 to 10 days of each
within
other.
10 days.
Okay.
Okay, we have such a motion on the floor.
So we can have the meeting and have input on it.
Yeah, we could. On
I
December 3rd.
I don't have any problem taking input on it.
Sure.
So no discussions? Okay, roll call, please.
Just a second.
Jeffrey, can you type fast? I'm just curious.
No.
No?
Okay.
The problem is I burnt my hand.
Do you have a burnt hand, Jeffrey?
He doesn't, yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
that's my problem with typing this evening. It's usually a little quicker.
Thought you were eating that cookie.
No, I'm not. It looks delicious, though.
Mm,
All
I'll
right,
have mine.
Mr. Rinsco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Board. So the next two items are very similar. The first one is a resolution to dispose of township vehicles and equipment valued at greater than $2,500. Colerain Township will periodically evaluate the existing fleet and equipment in its inventory for items that are no longer of value to the township and that can be sold to external parties. So we propose to auction these following items at the GovDeals website, and that includes a 1989 International dump truck, a 2001 Dodge Ram, a 1999 Diamond trailer, a 2000 International trailer, and a 2008 G-Force trailer. So I would recommend the approval of a resolution authorizing the disposal of surplus items valued at more than $2,500.
I'll make the motion.
And I will second it.
Good discussions?
Not for mine.
Not for me.
Good. Roll call, please.
Mr. Rinsco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item, like I said, is very similar. This is actually a resolution to dispose of township vehicles and equipment valued at less than, or $2,500 or less. So again, we evaluate our fleet and equipment for items that are no longer of value. We're proposing to auction off a 2003 Chevy S10 and a 2000 Bobcat trailer. So I would recommend the approval of a resolution authorizing the disposal of surplus items valued at $2,500 or less.
I motion for the resolution.
I second it. Discussion? Any discussions?
Not from me.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Rinsco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. And our next items are from the Planning and Zoning Department.
He was 10 steps in on the, unbelievable. You're either psychic or you pay attention. I don't know what it is.
A little bit of both. So I have two items from Planning and Zoning tonight. The first is to recommend the adoption of a resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement on the following properties for uncontrolled vegetation and/or refuse and debris. Those properties are as follows: 3283 Ainsworth, 3414 Alamosa, 9568 Amarillo, 2574 Bellhaven, 10876 Gosling, 9970 Hollis, 2476 Roosevelt, and 5429 West Kemper. And again, staff is recommending adoption of a resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement on these properties.
I motion that we do such a thing.
I second it. Any discussions?
Thank you for staying on top of that.
Good. Great job. Roll call, please.
Mr. Rinsco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
My copy. That's your copy.
Thank you. So the second item I have is a recommendation to adopt a motion to set a public hearing for a zoning map amendment for zoning case ZA 2019-06. It would set that public hearing on December 10th, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the Colerain Township Trustee Chambers. This is an item for a zone change text amendment. The applicant's looking to do a subdivision utilizing a planned development zone, a residential planned development zone. It's a subdivision that'll be proposed on approximately 30 acres on the north side of West Kemper Road. The amendment will be heard at the Zoning Commission at their hearing on November 19th, 2019, and then it will come to you all for a public hearing within 30 days, as is required by the ordinance. So again, staff is recommending adoption of a motion for a public hearing to be set for this zoning map amendment, ZA 2019-06, on December 10th, 2019 at 7 p.m., Colerain Township Trustee Chambers.
We have such a motion on the floor for the,
I will motion that we set a public hearing on December 10th for zone map amendment ZA 2019-06.
I second it. Any discussions?
So what they want to do is change the density up there, or what are they doing?
So the proposal is to take it from a residential density, or residential zone, and if they use the current zone, they can go ahead and do the subdivision by right, which means they go to Hamilton County, they meet the zoning requirement, or the subdivision regulations. Of course, they got to meet all the requirements for MSD, water, soil, drainage, all the other things that we don't do as a township. We do the zoning. What they want to do is actually they want to apply for a planned development. to increase some of the density on the site, but also provide some other flexibilities that you can do through the plan development, like you can provide open space and other amenities in your project. So
Mike,
we'll have a full review and everything at that public hearing about
Okay,
what
great.
they can do under the current zoning, what they can do under the proposed zoning, their proposal and everything.
Hey, Mike, are they seeking any tax abatement?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
No, no tax abatement. Okay. All right.
Again, the hearing is really just for the zoning. A lot of the infrastructure stuff, that's all taken care of in Hamilton County.
Okay.
Roads, water, sewer, drainage, grading, things like that is all the stuff that is taken care of in Hamilton County.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Inscoe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, you too.
All right, so our next item is a motion to appoint members to the Colerain Township We Thrive team. So the township advertised the need for resident representatives on the township's We Thrive team consistent with Resolution 39-19. The township received 6 application submissions, interviewed 3 candidates, and found all 3 to be tremendously positive people who wanted to make a positive difference in their community. So I recommend an adoption of a motion to appoint the following individuals to the township's We Thrive team per Resolution 36-19, including Ron Henline, Bill Nadler, and Jay Dennis.
I'll make a motion.
I second it. Any discussions?
So does that require them to fill out, is this contingent on them filling out the volunteer application form?
As part of their desire to be on this board, they already filled those out.
Okay.
Great. We want to thank those people volunteering to help our township.
Sure.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Inscoe? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
I have one other discussion. Could you read those 3 names again?
That is Ron Henline, Bill Nadler, and Jay Dennis.
And these are all relatives of Dan Unger, correct?
Greg, no, but I don't know any of them, and they're not my relatives, and I just wanted to read the names again. Does either of you two know them?
Yeah, they give me lots of money. No, I don't know who any of these people are, obviously.
Let's not be funny. Okay, let's go.
Is with people working cooperatively, isn't it?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Unger? I'm sorry, going backward. Mr. Inscoe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. And the final item today is a consent agenda item for an indigent burial with Spring Grove Cemetery. I recommend adoption of all consent items.
There's such a motion on the floor.
So moved.
Okay. In discussion?
Second. Somebody said second.
Oh,
I'm
somebody-
moving for
okay,
it.
all right.
Who seconded it?
I thought you just did.
You did.
Didn't Raj just make the motion?
Yeah, I'm
Second.
on the
Okay,
motion.
then I seconded it.
Okay. I thought
Okay.
you were asking for a motion.
No discussions?
And this is for an individual who passed away that is the township's charge to
Correct.
respectfully and properly dispose of his remains.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, roll call, please.
Briefly, I'll just say I'm proud to live in a community that does,
Care.
yeah, that cares. Honestly, we're a good community, and I'm grateful for that.
I am too, but I also think we're compelled to do that.
Yeah, but still,
We're compelled.
I've seen there are lesser communities that would not do what we do.
Right. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Inscoe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, the next agenda is fiscal office report.
I actually don't have too much of a report this evening. I just want to remind everybody to be safe on Halloween. And as Mr. Muckbuck mentioned earlier, there is an election. We all are aware of that. Do your homework. Find out more about as much as you need to know about the candidates to feel comfortable, and please cast your vote, because as my grandfather always said, if you don't vote, you can't complain. So thank you.
Thank you. Then next on the agenda is executive sessions if needed. I don't think so we need any executive sessions. And we'll move.
so.
And last thing is adjournment. And
I would motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I second it. Any discussions?
None.
Roll call, please.
So Mr. Rajagopal, you offered the second?
Yeah.
All right, let me call him. Mr. Inscombe?
This is the most rewarding job you could have, and please go out and vote for someone to fill this seat. Aye.
Mr. Inscombe?
Aye.
Mr.
I'm sorry,
Raj.
that was you. I wasn't sure if you would actually.
We
said
sound
it.
a lot alike.
All right. Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Quick spoon around.